what does it do? So you discover how to communicate with people.
Right.
So it's about the experience. It's about
And then things happen.
You need to be drunk with the people. You need to be outside more in the morning.
All right.
Who has a good mouth synthesizer? Who makes, yeah? Okay, can you stand next to me?
Okay, now turn your nipples together.
So I'm going to do a gesture once, and then I will do it again, and you will make a sound that corresponds to my gesture.
Okay.
Okay.
Nice.
Now, can you make the sound again, more or less?
Without you doing
Yeah, without you doing it. Okay, let's go again.
It's different.
Yeah.
It's only left, it's only right.
Now, he's going to make the same sound, but you have to find gestures.
I have to find gestures.
Yes, to go with.
Okay.
The same, exactly the same.
You can use the same audio language.
Okay.
But I have latency.
That's a problem.
No, actually, it's like the opposite of latency.
It's I have brilliance.
Okay.
Now you're just fucking me.
It's quite you can see that you're making actually the same kind of gestures.
Okay, so something is
Now,
Yeah,
high pitch,
also,
low.
also like hands.
Yeah.
And it's similar.
Yeah, the thing is that you, for the same sound, you can really find a different way to control it, right? So you are going to do the same gestures now, or more or less this is your gestural language, but she is going to make the sound.
Different instruments.
Yes.
Different output.
You're going to see this movement and you're going to make sounds to it. Yeah?
And so forth.
Okay, so this was a different thing because you, at first, in this couple we had the pitch, and we had low pitch and high pitch, but this time it was volume, and you stopped, and then he went
But
up.
it was both also.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
So-
like it's in the back of your head.
Yeah.
It's like there's some gestures that really make you do stuff. Like high will get you high pitch or high value.
Mm.
Low will get you low pitch or low value. Makes
Okay.
sense.
So I move when she sings.
No, not again.
No.
No, you sing and I move.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
No, you sing.
You do the same sound.
Again?
Yes.
You do the same sounds and I move.
The same.
Or
No, we're
same-
going for
same
early
audio thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Test is turning around. Test is still with the low input, it's turning around.
Continue?
Yeah. Okay. Let's do one. Yeah. Let's finish this and then we can do the second part. Go.
What was the question?
So if I've been doing no incondensing,
No put in out.
you've been typing applications.
Exactly what you say now is this idea about when you make a mapping. There's the idea that there's a conceptual metaphor into what you use. So in the case of Kyriakos, there was a thing like a scarecrow. Maybe you were affected by that. But this is, or maybe the bottle opener, or whatever. There is this interaction model, and the way that you know this thing that you associate it with. In my case, it was
Application ready.
yeah, and in his case, it was maybe not turning knobs, but even squeezing something or pushing it or pulling it, because he had both hands. So once you create a thing like this, then all the things that you're going to map, your sound language into your interaction model, they're brought together. And it's easy for you to find how you're going to do things and to develop your model, but it's also very interesting to communicate with your audience these things. So it creates also something for your audience to watch and something for your audience to understand what you're doing. You're creating more or less a context for it. This has its good sides, but it also has its bad sides. We can talk about this later. Now we're going to be separated in terms of 3. So let's have you 3. Oh, we're too few.
Teams of 2.5.
No, we're going to do teams of 3, and I will go with ties. So it's you 3 and you 3 and us 2. You're going to be separated. You're going to talk a little bit about the idea of orange. You're going to make an instrument.
Orange?
Orange.
The color.
The color?
Orange.
Orange.
Just orange.
Orange.
Okay.
Just go there and think about an instrument of orange. You're going to show us a piece of interaction and orange and sound. Just go there.
Orange. And you too. Okay.
Yeah? Yeah, use
sorry. In orange.
Yeah, just give orange.
Okay.
No one is
Orange. And they're gonna do orange also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's everyone got orange.
Everyone
Okay.
gets
So,
orange.
orange
Orange
is,
color. No?
Orange.
the color is orange. The fruit is, well,
Orange.
round, and it's got like the what do you call the skin, the peel of the orange is quite,
It's matte. It's not.
yeah, it's matte and it's got relief.
Yeah, it got points.
Yeah, points.
Okay. And
And
now.
now.
What do we do with that?
Yeah.
What do we do with the orange?
Sorry?
What do we do?
What do we do with the orange? Well, do we use an orange or do we think
Do you
about-
have an orange?
Do I don't have
I don't have an orange.
Throw it or
Yeah, you
squeeze
can
it?
throw it. That's a very good one. Squish it. Well,
Squeeze
that's
it
what you do
or
with
squeeze it as well?
You can squeeze an orange.
Yeah.
You can squeeze an orange.
Like the
because-
oranges?
So just slice it in half. Have two slices and rub it in your hands.
Do you want to do something that really shows that we're playing with an orange? I think we should be a little enigmatic. And maybe this represents an orange, not show.
Play with an orange.
The object orange shouldn't be in our piece.
Okay,
Be
yeah.
about oranges.
Okay, it should be about orange.
Or we can use an orange to produce
Oranges. Juice.
sound.
Yeah, you could think about the relief as your score.
Okay. Yeah.
So you have this
For
out.
example.
Yeah.
Or what do you think?
I'm orange. I'm as far as you are.
Okay. You don't want to have the orange in a piece. So no orange squeezing.
But if I would think of an original piece about an orange, I would take out
The orange.
the orange and talk around it.
But if the piece was about color orange, then you could use the orange. So that.
And also I would use all the colors except orange.
Okay, then you would use like then would you
But
use a lemon?
but that's like a personal.
Yeah, but then you would use a
I would
lemon.
use a lemon or
Yeah.
I would use lemons and grapefruits. Anything that's
Other things from the.
I would show how the orange is not there.
Okay.
I would
Yeah.
busy showing that the orange is
Okay,
there.
so we use a lemon and grapefruit.
Yeah.
I want to.
Yeah, so let's be with an orange, because like I said, it will take 2 months to develop.
Okay, so
Okay, so let's do an orange.
well, you could when you slice an orange in half, you get like the different. You can see the different parts, right?
Yeah, probably around 8 slices or something.
Yeah.
Maybe 12 or 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got all of these. What kind of things you could use it for? The,
Well, we have, it's like a cake. It's like
Yeah.
slices
stuff.
of a cake, so we have 9 sections.
Yeah.
This is like making a
Sections. 1 3 times 4.
are we supposed to think about a piece, or are we
I don't
supposed
know.
to think about it as an instrument?
An instrument?
Yeah.
I think we're supposed
And there's sounds.
Georgios,
Yes?
are we supposed to do a piece? Like
Yes,
music
you are
piece?
going to perform orange.
We're going to perform
Oh,
orange.
okay.
So you need to think of an interaction way of using either the color or the fruit or any other idea you have.
Yeah.
And you have to more or less think of an audio language for it. Or you perform.
Yeah,
you
okay.
improvise now,
Perform
so-
orange.
Okay, and don't take it easy. 63 minutes we're done, we'll present.
Okay, so you could use the different parts, and you could use it to play the national anthem of the Netherlands.
Okay.
So this would also
I
be
don't know
mapping.
the
So
national anthem of
you would map the notes of the Dutch national anthem to slices, and you would just push them,
Yeah, yeah.
and this would be.
But
your
it
piece.
would do sounds like us.
Yeah, you would amplify that, of course.
Yeah. So no, it would be always the same sound.
Yeah, basically it would. Yeah, but it's kind of like data is it's kind of like fluxes.
So you do.
Yeah. Take an orange, slice it in half, play
You
the.
gotta be careful
We can call
Do you have
it
a story of it?
And then you give it to someone.
The story of?
The story of O.
Oh?
For orange.
The story of O. I like that.
For orange.
So I'll ask
There's a book that
the
you
wizard
should
of O.
The Wizard of Orange.
The wizard of O.
The Wizard of War. Wizard of War.
Of or?
So, the Wizard of War. Okay, so the performance itself, how is this going to happen?
Well,
We need the control of someone that can close.
it's definitely done on Queen's Day.
Definitely.
It's definitely performed only on Queen's Day.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Then you have a lot of crowd. You have a lot of people.
Yeah.
So
It goes for money.
you would have sounds like
Yeah.
stuff like that. I'm not sorry.
You know the anthem?
What?
You know the anthem? You know
The anthem?
Sweet and Lawrence? Yeah.
Do we have an orange? No, we don't. No. No, these are details I would have to think about.
What kind of direction?
Well, the mapping of the notes to the orange.
So different slides, different sound.
Yeah, different slice, different pitch.
Okay.
And different intensity.
Yeah.
So one person makes the sound, the two.
But it's kind of like fluxes.
Yeah, but you could do something. Not just squeeze.
No.
Makes one person
That's what you do.
performance.
Yeah. In an orange.
And then the other output we get.
Right. Is everybody about ready?
No shit.
Are you done?
Started with the concept.
If returns will
So how do we work?
are you
Like we said, you have different guest
Well,
hosts, so we're just.
well,
you make sounds.
Yeah, you're ready.
You sound ready. So we're ready.
Who's gonna do? I'm gonna do the sounds.
You want to? Oh, we're really going to do a performance.
We're going to do a performance.
Wasn't
Okay.
that the idea?
Do you know the Dutch national anthem?
That's the idea.
Melody, I don't know.
No.
So one of you can do the Dutch national anthem. And you can whistle the Dutch national anthem, right?
No idea.
Okay, so
I'll
play the orange. I'll
play
the
the
orange of
But we cannot afford to because it's not Sweden. So.
Yeah, but yeah, okay. We have
You have a concept.
a conceptual technicality.
Like a fluxus piece.
We have a conceptual technicality though. We can only play it on
Yeah.
Queen's Day.
Right.
We can explain the piece.
So basically, we were thinking of, but on Queen's Day.
Or a very important soccer match.
Well, it's like 16 days till the Queen's birthday.
But that doesn't
Yeah, you
count.
guys have to start rehearsing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe you can do a tryout concert here.
Right now.
We don't have an orange with us, but we were thinking about slicing one up, and then you've got like the different pieces. And you could map the different pieces to the notes in the Dutch national anthem. So, and you could play it just by squishing them. It wouldn't make any sound, but
By making juice, we can play the
Yeah.
national anthem.
Okay, so can you show us what it is like?
We don't have it. It's
Well,
not Queen's Day. We don't have an orange, but
it would basically sound.
it's
Come on, music, yeah.
okay. So I'm playing my orange
Here,
here.
take a cucumber instead.
Yeah.
Would you like?
And it's interactive with the audience.
Yeah.
That's it.
And you could be able to sell orange juice afterwards,
Yeah.
made by your hands. So
Okay.
it's like completely.
It's the whole package.
There's not a lot to sell though.
Sorry?
From half an hour.
For half an hour.
No, but like you do it before we go to the class.
No, the moment the orange is squeezed, we take another one.
And you do
Then the controller stops working.
So you can actually start this orange bar and then
Yeah, and play the Dutch national anthem.
do this while you're preparing the orange. And
Like the orange bar.
Right, so you're done.
Is that not enough?
Yeah, absolutely. it's
Okay.
It's like we can apply for a residency. Man.
Shit. 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 Run. 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 Or.
Okay.
Hey, alright, of course.
Hey, Apple.
Hey, Apple.
Hey, Apple. Hey, Apple. Okay, your turn.
Should we explain the concept first, or should we perform it
No,
first?
let's just do it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good.
Let's not much as concept.
Okay. Yeah, and it goes like that.
Okay, so this is a first idea about how you can really, further develop your model and start mapping basically certain actions to sounds, but also how physical properties of the thing that you map to start playing out in your sound as well, and into the palette of sounds that you're using. Because now we found 3 sounds, all range in our case, that were related to that. But the audio, the musical language that we would have is also determined and constrained by our metaphor of orange. So you can use maybe, we use 3, you can make them 5 or 7 or 10 sounds, but you don't have all the richness of what your mouth can make, for example. So a metaphor is a really good thing for you to start finding key concepts of it, and it can help you reveal ideas about your instrument, but also it can somehow place constraints to what you map to your audio language. So yeah, this is it. And every concept is related, and every metaphor and every idea is connected to other ideas. So once you say that my sound language or what I want to express, it's related to this concept, and this concept is related to others, the connection of the orange to other parts of it can reveal ideas about your instrument as well. And of course, metaphors are always misleading because we choose to put light into certain aspects of it. But then again, it can help you develop your process. Would you like to do another thing like this? Like what we just did?
Well, I have to check if we still want to do a discussion. We still have like about an hour.
About an hour, yeah.
So
I think we can do another round of a gesture like this, and then we can talk a little bit about metaphors and also about mapping. So it's the same things. Yeah, let's go over there.
That's really far away.
Here,
Same sentence.
yeah.
Okay.
Which one?
Yeah, show us something.
Okay.
Yeah, and in 10 minutes we're done actually.
Alright.
So also you, but can I put ties in yours? Make a person out. Would you like to come?
It's orange.
Okay. So you three, I'd like to do the microphone now.
Okay, what about waves?
Yeah, just sine waves.
I'm just saying.
Just sine waves.
Sound waves.
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 Sea waves.
Yeah.
Sea waves.
Sea waves. Yeah.
Sea waves.
Like waves.
Okay, yeah.
And what do they do?
No, it's a part of your. It's an instrument. You cannot do it. It's not easy
No.
to do it as an instrument. To carry it if you play it something like that.
That's true.
But we don't have an orange either.
No.
You can buy one. You can buy the city.
10 minutes. So yeah, no, but this yeah, I mean the gestures of the sea, you have small waves, you have big waves.
Yeah.
You have,
Those are meant for-
tornadoes in the sea.
Really?
No.
Bermuda Triangle.
No, not tornado. How is it called? Like
Yeah.
whirlpools. Whirlpools. That's a tornado in the sea,
Okay.
right?
They also make washing machines.
Yeah, whirlpool is sea creatures from the whirlpools of the Mediterranean Sea that opened the company decided to make washing machines.
So what's the metaphor there?
So we have the sea. No, so we have
Waves.
gestures of
Yeah.
waves.
Sea waves.
Water. So can be salty. I don't know how we use salty though. I don't know. But the movement of the sea. So you have big waves, you have small waves, you have calm sea, you have hard sea, whirlpool, tsunami.
All kinds.
All kinds of shit. Boats, pirates,
Swimming, people drowning.
pirates,
Yeah.
Pirates.
fish.
Lost ninjas.
No, what?
Lost ninjas.
Lost ninjas. A lot of lost ninjas in the sea.
So,
Lost pirate ninjas.
okay.
So we have gestures.
Yeah.
What kind of
Sounds.
gestures?
Yeah, definitely. That would be
Stuff like
probably.
this.
No, yeah, that's not about it.
Yes.
There's kind of make
Whirlpool would turn around, but we have to think of sounds. That's big. But we can turn around the sounds. So big gestures, small sounds,
It's a good one.
small gestures.
So that really fucks up your brain.
Yeah. Yeah, but if it's well done, then it works.
Yeah, that's true, but we can do it pretty well now.
No, just scream when you see me not moving.
Well, you can do small sounds and I can do big sounds.
Oh,
He's
okay.
going to do it.
Then small sounds is in big gestures,
Yeah.
and big sounds is in small
Yeah,
gestures.
so when he's doing small gesture, I'll do a big sound.
You.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I don't do anything,
If he doesn't, nobody does.
If you don't,
if I don't do anything,
it depends on the sea. Depends on the state of the sea.
sure.
So, big moves.
So yeah, big moves,
Small sounds.
small sounds.
And quiet, just small. Do you mean small amount of time or
I would say
small?
quiet.
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 Quiet what?
Big gestures,
Big
quiet
quiet
sounds.
like
Small gestures, loud sounds, and then I guess the length of the sound would be
On the gestures.
Yeah.
And we're using the contrast to, just for conceptual thought, we're using the contrast to enhance your visual,
Yeah.
to make it more dramatic,
Yeah.
it's more dramatic. So.
Exactly.
This is done in movies all the time.
All the time.
You can tell your audience this.
Yeah. In theater also.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And when you do like this, I'll just scream.
I'll make you scream a lot. 'Cause I've what else? So yeah, the gestures would be this.
Is that small or big?
This is
This is
quiet C.
This is
This is quiet C. This is
this is like front and back. Do you want to do something with front and back? Like if you're doing like this, or if you're doing like this?
this would be quiet C.
Yeah.
So loud C.
Yeah.
And this would be loud C. So
quiet C.
sound.
And this is basically the same, but just another movie.
This is this is a wave.
This is a tsunami.
This would be a wave. Yeah, this would be a tsunami.
And is that different?
This would be small waves,
Yeah.
like
So
you can surf on if
yeah.
you're a beginner. This would be slightly bigger. This would be tsunami.
Yeah.
So like three ranges.
And why do we overlap?
And then you overlap. So maybe when I do the middle wave, you can put together the same value.
Okay. So you stand in the middle like this, and we'll
It's like
watch each other and watch you.
yeah. Yeah, so this would be middle, this would be big, and this would be
Yeah.
small. Like small would be really small, big would be
Yeah.
really big, and the middle would be kind of normal. Pitches? Pitches? Just improvise.
Yeah.
Improvise.
So now
we took this, so we have this. This is big sound,
it's
like
like
the small sounds.
the drummer from the Muppets.
Yeah. This is and we have a whirlpool.
Well, I'm not really sure what that does.
What that sound would be. But this would be a small whirlpool. And this would be a big one. And if I fall after, then I fall after. That would be also dramatic. And you can do a small sound while I fall.
Alright.
Big gesture.
Depends on how fast you're going to go.
No, so we have six different gestures.
Yeah. But a lot of them are quite alike.
It's two gestures with each different one. So six all in all.
Yeah, but this and this,
Yeah.
I have to differentiate between
That's where the
That's
sound
where creativity
comes in.
comes.
That's where the sound comes in.
Yeah,
Because this would be a different sound than this.
yeah. I think that would be nice if or
This
also
would
match.
This would be
Okay, this would be like a more noisy sound, like a
white noise. C. And this would be
Splash.
but it's
Splash.
really hard to do like white noise
Splash.
really loud.
Use the word splash. Splash.
That's
Splash, splash, splash.
a bit strange.
Splash, splash.
But it's really hard to do white noise really loud.
Yeah, that's the challenge. Or you actually do bubbles.
That's a whirlpool.
That's the whirlpool.
Okay, so we've got the whirlpool.
I'm not sure I'm gonna do the whirlpool though.
You will do the whirlpool.
I will do the
loud
whirlpool. I will do the loud whirlpool.
Yeah.
I will.
It will fall down, and that's the performance is over.
After, okay, so we finish with the whirlpool.
It's really working out the stuff. Wow.
You just program code something fast. Okay, that sounds.
You want to write it down?
No, you want to write it down? It's not that much information. I remember it.
Documentation, though.
Yeah, documentation.
Yeah.
Mapping is documenting the mapping is important.
Do you also do music? So,
Oh, no, I'm just playing for myself.
but this is not all so important to you.
Actually, we were just talking about last night, so I know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. That's all new.
But I don't know if I will ever do it in my life. I just have fun. And if it goes well, then I might come and see what's the product of the music.
Product, how did you get that?
Product.
Yeah,
What product?
not product, I mean the thing that you're gonna play.
We're
Are
just
you
talking.
planning for a concert? Are you
Okay, oh
Are you
yeah,
planning
we do that.
We don't walk.
to design instrument
But we
and
do
use
that
it?
anyway,
Okay,
regardless if we're just meeting or not.
you're just using your imagination. Why not?
Yeah, that sounds good.
I sometimes use my
I thought it
imagination.
was more serious than that. Yeah, so you are ready to go for a specific purpose. I thought it was going to end up somewhere.
Oh, okay. I wish it was. Okay, so is everyone done already?
We need a couple
We're totally ready. We're board ready.
I have stereo.
Stereo.
Yeah.
So
anyone in
all
the
of
chat?
the sound.
No, it's my stereo is
stereo.
it has like a
It's still running.
a volume kind of cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Separated.
Well, I could do that. I can't even do it.
I would have to think about the big gestures and small sounds.
Should we set up the stage?
Just go something.
Can I go to the toilet? Can I?
Down.
I need to uncode stuff.
No backslash.
No, I do a lot of data bending, so it feels like uncoding
How far are you?
stuff. Like you change the hex
We are
code
just
file.
drawing our leaves and we're done.
We have to make a set.
Nobody can
Let's make
find.
one with
Oh, you're just drawing your leaves.
Actually,
Yeah.
it's a file that I screwed up, but it will still show.
So we've set up the stage.
Oh, okay.
I used to load these data files in Audacity and just play them.
Yeah,
Stuff like that.
we can also save and load video files in Audacity and export them as video files and glitches. So often you can add filters and stuff. Just
Like
glitches.
filters all my audio, all my video files.
Yeah, you keep the, you open it as a raw file, you save it as a video, you open it as the same video, and you basically think you could copy paste the header of the file, and just repaste it inside the file after, inside the and then different filters do different kinds of glitches, and it's glitches, it's not video effects, it's glitches.
Cool.
It's crazy.
Awesome.
And now I did the mushroom patch in Quartz Control.
Mushroom?
What mushroom is?
Data machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like take the frame, the movement of the frame.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I can do that.
Okay.
Like,
Are you ready?
yeah.
Okay,
Most of the time it's
let's
an offline thing.
What?
Most of the time it's an
Yeah,
offline.
usually it's offline, and now I found a way on It's just iframes and video.
No one's doing that.
You can use it and
I do video for friends.
So basically, you press it out and it inserts an iframe, and then the other video.
I was able to see you can do it when you
Yeah,
want.
so
One
you
button
can
is
insert an iframe from this video.
one button is correction.
Yeah, it's 4 buttons. I have because I have one video effect, and I can choose which of the videos I'm putting the iframe in and which.
Alright.
So you can actually play on 4.
Let's start.
Yeah, take away.
Ready?
forma?
This one?
I think our theme was chair. So that came pretty early. And we thought of this sort of multi-step mapping. So that with each sort of round that we had, the mapping changed. So at first it was like the percussive beating of your own body. And then there was one loser of the first round, like almost like a game concept. And then the loser had to drum, and then there was this different sort of thing. And the last one, the mapping changed again.
I also think I like the idea that you were tapping faster and slower at some point, but they were not very responsive, so it was feeling like the two agents of the system.
And at certain points they were responsive.
Yeah.
Like, there were points where you were responsive to faster, and then not.
Yeah.
But like, then you wanted to win, and then you wanted to be responsive, and then you wanted to win, and then you wanted to be responsive.
Well,
He was
that was
there, I think so.
There was
I was
this,
going faster.
there was like the direction in which the chair was standing. So when I was close to being able to sit immediately, I was standing slower. And when I came to the other side, it was
I noticed that, so when I almost stopped, I saw that he was so close to it, wasn't going to be close, so I started laughing again.
it was kind of a bummer. I tried to cheat.
No, yeah. It's fine that there's competition between agents somehow in the system. Okay, so the second point of the group.
Yeah.
That's us.
Yeah.
It will be us. Okay.
You better just stand there.
Yeah.
Optimal effect. Splash, 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 splash. Splash, 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 splash. Splash, 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 splash. Splash, 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 splash. Wash, 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 wash. Splash, 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 splash. Wash, wash, wash. Splash, splash. Wash, wash.
Splash, splash!
Voilà. You used to do ballet, right?
No, 4 years theater.
Oh yeah, we thought about the sea, of course.
Yeah, by the way, our concept was the sea.
We first did the mapping, so we approached the mapping by making loud noises when the sea was calm, to see what the effect was. And to add dramatic effect to these movements as well.
And you had two sound sources.
Try to.
Yeah.
We had two.
It was stereo.
She was going to do the soft sounds and I did the loud sounds.
Oh, yeah. Ah, you did
I
that.
know it wasn't.
Well, they weren't loud enough?
No, that's what I was saying.
But this is one of the things that I was thinking when you were talking about the time scale, and you have the temperature sensor and it changes slowly. But I think we need to think of the time factor, not only in the terms of input in the system, but also in terms of output. So between saying and you need some time to move your mouth and make it ready for this. But also when you're playing, when you simply switch with the sound of a guitar to the sound of a fart with the button, you have maybe reverbs or you have delays, and the change is not instant. It means some time for one to fade in and fade out. So it's not only a matter of input, but also a matter of output. Like in this case too, choosing who is going to be doing that. Are you gonna sleep or not? No. It's up to you.
They have props.
Yeah. I'm well prepared.
And we had props too.
We had the sea.
We can start. Fun cards.
Multimedia.
Paper and mouth.
What's the sound of a tree?
What's the sound?
Yeah.
So the man of peace.
What's the sound?
What's the sound of the tree?
Yeah, seasons was one of the things that we thought of. We also thought that a leaf has, of course, its shape. It has its color, which changes, and the idea was that we were going to the sound at first when the green is it's spring and the green is leaf. The green is green. Then the sound is very vivid and fresh, and then the summer comes and the autumn, and then it gets bigger and more tired, and then you have things affecting it. So the wind blows the leaves and they fall down, and the leaves don't make a sound when they fall. But for example, in cartoon language, they do. So there's this idea that one metaphor can be leaded by the normal notion of spring and the leaves and how things go, but also of other narration techniques. So cartoon, for example, how it works in this. And then we thought also that the leaf is a sign of identity. So you see this leaf and you know that, hey, this is a pine tree, for example, or it's a whatever tree.
And you even documented the mapping.
No, where we were sketching out the
Only
notes.
one of
To the
that.
mapping wiki. To the mapping wiki.
First of all,
Right.
mapping wiki.
First upload to the mapping wiki.
People will be
Good
like,
incentive.
So shall we dive into discussion? For the last
Yeah,
minutes that we have.
yeah, let's discuss.
Someone come and, guys, what's going on? We go away for 1 minute, suddenly I'm looking at performance art.
What's that?
I think it's Gleb. Not sure about it.
So to continue a little bit with the workshop, what we do next, we do 3 rounds of making instruments, and then once the people do the final performance, which is the bigger one and the more detailed one, so they develop at first that they get to know the thing, and then they make the orals thing, and the second and the third. The third is more developed, and we ask people, hey, you made this. Now make a notation for it. And to make a notation for such a thing is very hard. You have to make hard choices about what you choose to show, how you're going to implement time into your schedule and into your time frame. But this really forces you to think about what are the key elements of your performance and also of the model that you chose to represent your soundscape. And the last part of the workshop that we do is people have to create really a map. So we give them a lot of things, and they create valleys and mountains, so they create cities and buildings and stuff, and there's this idea of texture, for example. So a valley has a different texture from a map, from a mountain with a lot of spikes. A city has blocks that are square and more organized and these things. But also areas when you are in the map and you're over here and it's mountainous and you have this kind of sound and you have to go to the calm thing, it's also a time-based thing. So it takes you time to go from into something calm, and it also takes you time in spatial distance in the map from one place to the other, and this also helps you really develop then the shape of your instrument. So,
but it's also like what is in between, because you can travel like from A to B, but you can also do that via sea or via some other route.
Yeah, so it's also exactly, then can we see an instrument and the performance more as a map of spaces, and then your whole performance, you have your audio language and you're just roaming around between cities and valleys and mountains, and maybe this is a way to think of a performance in general, like a concept not for a particular instrument, a metaphor not for an instrument, but for performance in general. Performance is a stroll.
Reminds me of these memorizing techniques where you imagine different things, you map them mentally to some house where you're walking through. So you know, I'm walking into this room and there's these things in this room which relate to this part of my speech which I'm doing basically.
This is a memorizing trick.
Yeah.
Did you ever use it?
It's
I think that
like general
difference
memorizing
works.
stuff. So you have a house, and each room has a different subject, and you go from one room to the other.
But this
And
is
by
this
rehearsing the house, you remember what's in every room. Then you have
It's
visual
variations,
kind of reference.
Yeah, but
the
it,
Greeks came up with it already.
So you want to you want to remember your periodical map, and then you think of your house, or you say these are.
Well, it's especially because they use it really for like to memorize like rhetoric speeches. So while someone's doing the speech, it isn't reading from paper, but
It's actually going from
going
A to B.
through this mentally going through this house where all these arguments
Yeah.
are.
Let's say you were talking about Churchill, for example. You mentioned his office. And you go through all the different objects in his office, and then as you see those in your mind, then you know what to talk about.
Okay.
It relates to
it's almost like notes.
Yeah, it's
Like in your head.
it's like a score.
But it also
Yeah.
works more abstract, right? This is a really, for example, you have this new presentation. People were used to do like a PowerPoint and stuff, and now you have Prezi, which you can place objects, and in those objects you can have multiple layers. And when you look at that from far away, it's also like a map, with everything mapped out. And when you're doing a presentation, it's really good to keep the overview of that map in your head. So that's a more like way of using that in the software.
Yeah, but what I kind of like right now I'm doing a residency here at SIM, and I'm working on live electronics performance, where I'm designing an instrument and doing a lot of mapping. But my source inspiration or my main theme is chaos, and I'm using a no input mixer as a main sound source. And one of the things I like about it is that I don't actually know what I'm up against. Like I don't know what it's going to give me because it's a chaotic system. And
Trust me, the mixer doesn't know what he's up against either.
no, but the interesting thing for me is like if you take the metaphor of that map, is that I would have a map that's mostly blacked out, and I can only see in a quite small region. And I don't know if I go into a certain direction, where that direction might take me. There might be a huge mountain there, but like it might be that I'm close to a tipping point of a chaotic function, and I'm suddenly burst into this new sound space. But it could also be that I'm traveling in similar territory, and it's just variations in what I'm doing. So
maybe then you don't know the space, or it's also that you are blind somehow, because you talked about the tipping point,
yeah,
and that you don't see it coming. So it's like there's a cliff.
or there could be a cliff, and I think that's kind of the sort of tension and the sort of expression that I'm looking for, is that everything that's happening has this form of fragility to it. So it's hanging together at a certain time, but there's this tension of that at any time something could happen.
Anytime you can get to a cliff.
Yeah.
Like any slightest small
Like
movement
you're
can
walking
really-
on a sort of tightrope, and at any moment you could fall and transition into something else. And I think there's a really interesting and expressive tension there. But it relates to mapping in a completely different way. And
But it does relate to mapping a lot, though.
Totally.
It's mapping, it's just that it changes every time you get to the mixer.
The thing is that
Let's say it's mapping that each thing is mapped to the same thing originally, but every value, every combination of each different value will give you something totally different. So it's a
Is it
dynamic
really-
mapping.
I don't know if it's a map. The idea was the map, if I remember correctly, maps were invented by Leonardo da Vinci actually. But if I'm correct, but the idea was that it would help police or security forces to go into the city really quickly, so you would know when there's trouble, and you have the whole structure, the buildings and stuff, and you can go from, but in your case, the map is not like this, because you don't know what is there. I think
I
maybe you
feel,
have the basic avenues, like I know that when everything is at minimum, I get these small bars, and when everything is at maximum is there, so maybe you have some certain things, but you have many black areas, like dark.
it might be more like the map of an ocean, where everything's fluid.
Map of an ocean.
But I know, like, I might be able to travel from this place to this place over that ocean, but I have no idea, like, if there's going to be a hurricane in between, or jet waves, or not, or gullies, or...
The map doesn't have any, it doesn't make any sense.
No.
The map doesn't have any function, doesn't serve any function in that system.
It's all about the
I don't know,
exactly.
It might be...
No, but it is.
Because there
It's
could
a
be
lot
anything,
of
basically,
gray
there could
areas.
be a mountain, there could be anything, and you don't know how to get there.
Well, you could be traveling to England, but encounter a hurricane in the meantime.
No, but it's
Still
not like this.
it's not like
Back to
towards
this system.
England.
No, it's not like this with this system.
Yeah.
No, but the way the system is built is in a way mapped. Each button is mapped to a certain function. Definitely, to a very specific function. It's just that the middle points, the relation, the middle points, what comes first, what comes after, always changes the overall, the way. It's really, you have A and you have B, but you really don't know what's between
So
A
it's
and
like
B.
contained chaos.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
chaos that doesn't impact it destructively.
There's like
Oh,
a
it's
giant difference between randomness and chaos. So in chaos, there are still some things that you can sort of depend on, and that is if you don't put a lot of energy or a lot of high values, if you talk about math, pressure into the system, that it will usually respond in a predictable way. But if you add enough energy or pressure to the system, it collapses into unpredictable behavior.
But it's funny because it collapses even in predictable behaviors. It
Yeah.
can collapse into something
Mhm.
that you would expect
Yeah.
that it would collapse.
There are some collapses that you can expect and some collapses that you cannot. And I'm sort of wondering, like, there's a lot of these things in mapping that, I mean, they're still mapping. I'm still mapping. I have input values that I map to certain parameters. But it gets fuzzy as to what those parameters actually do to the
Yeah, but that is because of the feedback in your chaos system.
Yeah.
And that it's a temporal thing. So you're at point at a certain point in time, and there are certain events have happened already, and those influence what your current control is going to be doing.
And you have also phasing issues.
Oh,
but it's funny because you have those phases, and those phases really change the whole character of everything. If you get the same wave at this point or at this point, it will sound totally different. The whole system will sound different. And then those small values.
But at the same point, or with the same performance, I'm actually taking the idea of saxophones, or like in my example of a saxophone, as a sort of metaphor for a system that behaves predictably if you don't blow too hard into it, but if you overblow it, it becomes more noisy and more chaotic. But that process is extremely controlled. You can control that to the finest. Like,
would you be able to emulate that? So not having actual chaos, but keeping a record of everything that's happened, and having that react on what you're doing right now. So what the control is mapped like at that point in time, because that's basically what it is, right? You pass the tipping point, and then the meter starts running, basically, because then stuff gets fed back into your system.
Yeah.
So if you kept a database of what has happened, could you?
Yeah, but I like the sort of inherent simplicity of acoustic instruments in that sense, where it's just embedded into this one logical thing. That
In acoustics, is it the same thing really? Because when you in chaos, it's like like I said, like you've got a point and you're at a certain point because the things let you up to there. But when you like overblow a saxophone, is it the same thing? How does that happen?
I actually don't really know.
No, it's different. It sounds.
Yeah, it's probably different.
It sounds
so that
unpredictable.
would be like a big difference between acoustic chaos and well, yeah, what do you call that?
Well organized chaos.
Electronic chaos, mathematical chaos.
Well
But
organized.
you do follow, I mean, your system, because it's based on analog, on physical material. At the end of the day, it is, it's based on physical values. It's not arbitrary keys mapping, because it's based on electronic circuitry.
But still, the electronic circuitry also has different states. Has different temperatures, has different the space between.
Yeah, but
the
it's all about physical properties. It's not. It's not a we that I say you do that.
It's not a value.
So.
It's not a number. It's pressure.
It's physical.
It's electricity.
But I think Mark had a good point, because he said if you are going between A and B and then there's C in the middle, you don't really know. It's not really a map because you cannot see where you're going. But what is this system? The idea of map can be useful in entire system. Is that of documentation of finding a way to show your performance, the spaces from A to B that you have explored in your system. So it's not good before the performance. You don't know how you're going to get there. It's all a matter of surprise. But it's good in retrospect when you look back at your performance and you say, "Hey, this route that I took, it's this happened."
I don't think you can get twice from A to B in the same way.
One of the things
like a no input mixer, I'm not sure.
Okay,
but I built a chaotic delay over the last instrument I did, and my only control was basically a touch strip. This is already a concrete example. It was a touch-sensitive strip, and I could sense the position on the strip. But basically, the only thing I did was I mapped the strip to a database of 10 presets with different settings for the chaotic delay.
Yeah.
And I was, if I could just choose a preset and it would, not iterate, but what do you call that? Interpolate between these presets.
Okay, yeah.
So I could do this, and then I would have preset 1, and then do this, and the values would slowly slide up to preset 4, basically. And what I did with that was that they basically all sounded the same, always, if I chose them, but the preset that was before that, or the one, like the settings I had before, the thing I played before, a little bit impact on that.
Yeah. So the transition would sound different.
The transition would definitely sound
Always
different.
sound different.
But the characteristics of the delay line at
Of
a certain point stayed the same.
Yeah. I wonder with no input. I mean, I tried to get twice to the same outcome.
I've never
And
got one
it's possible, but it's probably possible. It's very, very, very hard and probably not worth it with this kind of chaotic instrument. I mean,
well, it's also like one of the key aspects that I find interesting about this entire process is the necessity of having to listen to what's happening and having to react on that. That I actually find attractive to using chaos and using. I cannot use notation whatsoever. I cannot trust on. Okay, I just follow the notes.
But on the other hand, the concept of a map you could use.
Yeah.
As a concept, as going from A to B. With a visual notation or a concept or a story or whatever.
You can definitely respond, and you can definitely push sounds into certain directions.
Yeah.
And that's why a map is still interesting.
And you do have relatively a lot of control. I mean, you know a lot about the sounds that will come out. It's just that in the middle you have some points where it can get lost.
Yeah, to me it sounds more like a compass than a map.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
I think, yeah,
that's a good...
that's a really good metaphor.
I would say that it's a compass with a magnet on it.
At certain points there are magnets that you might come across.
And you might come across some polarities from west.
Another thing, what happens, I've never done a good mixer, well, once I think, but but it's definitely long ago. But what happens work like you put all the knobs into position A, so the position in which the knobs are, and you turn the mixer on, and within a certain amount of time, within 10 seconds, you turn them up to position B.
Yeah.
What happens if you've got a certain sound then recorded, for example? Then you turn the mixer off, you put all the knobs again in position A, turn it on, and do the exact same thing.
Well, okay, one of the aspects of chaotic systems is that it's part of the definition actually. It's extremely responsive to existing conditions. So if you have the knobs, if you have one knob, like an undetectable amount less put open, like if you have the system and you blow against it, like just blow air against it, and one of the knobs might move a little bit, or the mixer might be still hotter than it was before, or whatever initial condition there is different from the other one.
But the characteristic stays the same.
Basically, from my experience,
it might stay the same. It might be really different depending on your distance to the tipping point.
From my experience, it's only if you're on 0 or on 10. So if you're either all the way up or all the way down, it's the only position in the mixer where you can be that exact to get the same value.
Yeah, and that's
Each
actually
every
something
other
that I use.
value is like really microscopic. It's you
Yeah.
move the button a little bit, it can change totally.
Even like if you have a button that is in a certain position and you put your finger on top of it, not moving it, even that's enough to
Yeah.
change the sound and change the characteristic of
I have that a
the-
lot when I take my hand off a knob.
Yeah.
And then I move the knob slightly a little bit and I don't have the wave anymore because it's like this half a millimeter
Wow.
difference. So it's like really, I had that today a lot.
Yeah.
I was
but-
trying to get my hand off it so that it stays and you move it because you put some pressure on it.
Mhm. And but that's also the cool thing, that it doesn't respond in that way. Like the whole calibration thing and the whole being able to reproduce what you had before, that's sort of, you have to sort of forget about that aspect of mapping. But there's still mapping in terms of
It's mapped.
almost like Boolean, the Boolean idea, like on or off, like what you said, like
Yeah.
nothing happens or something happens, and so there's this area where mapping works, and there's this area where you sort of have to let go of the concept that if you have this gesture or have this value, then it will produce this or that. You just have to, and some part that you said in the presentation, for instance, with the flutes and the fingering and how much. That's exactly what's happening. It's you're constantly listening and adjusting to that. But I think there's a lot of musicality in there, and a lot of sort of the personality of a performer comes across there because it's because you're forced to listen and respond all the time.
It's really, you really get the dialogue. You really get something that gives you slightly different things than what you expect, and you have to react to it all the time, just to stabilize it for you. But then it's
I have
really
a
nice
question
dialogue.
for you too, because you've both played with input mixers, but I want you to think,
No
give me
input
each one your own answer. Can a person be a virtuoso in no input? And what's the difference to an amateur? What are the qualities of virtuoso in no input?
First off, yes, you can be a virtuoso in no input mixing, and I think the sort of essence lies in your ability to adapt to the circumstance and respond. So you work with the mixer all the time, and at a certain point you become aware of its quirks and of its behaviors. And at a certain point you become so good at listening and hearing what it's doing and knowing, like, I should put like a little bit more of this or a little less of this, or I think the virtuosity lies in knowing your setup and being extremely open to whatever comes at you and responding to that.
I would go further and say that it's like a guitar. There's a learning curve, and at a certain point, your finger just, you know how it's very dependent on the mixer you're using and how it's the no input is set up on it. But
As it
it
works
also
with
has a lot to do with your coordination with your hands, with what slider you're putting up, what knobs you're turning. The more you play on a no input mixer, the more you start recognizing the chaos, by the way. And it is chaotic, but at a limit. There's a lot that you can know and predict in a no input mixer, whether it's getting some volume up after you put this volume up or the opposite. You will at a certain point understand that if you put this first and this after, then you'll have a different transition between both channels. But then I saw people playing, which they have this 16-channel mixer with 5 bands of EQ, and it's like piano virtuosos. It's really like they know exactly what to move, where to move. They know exactly how they're mapped, what their setup is, and it has to do a lot with the body. It's like the more you play,
It's a skill.
it's like playing any other instrument. That's what I love about the
It
no-input mixer.
sounds like riding a bull or a really wild horse. But
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
have no control
Yeah.
over it.
I think
Something
like
that.
I think like one of the main differences is that if you take, for instance, a guitar, if you do not touch the guitar, it will not start playing by itself, and you'll have to sort of adjust the guitar playing by itself to get what you want. But that's sort of what a mixer does. If you put it,
It's just you have to make it stop. You don't have to make it start.
it's literally controlling what's happening instead of being the instigator of what's happening.
No, it's controlling what's already happening.
Yeah.
It's like trying to keep a balance or something so that it doesn't blow up, but so that it doesn't fade away totally. So you try
But
to.
if you wanted to make an instrument which was a lot like an acoustical instrument, then you would have to find the balance between this chaotic system and
Then you
something
would
which is mapped like a MIDI keyboard.
You would have to build a no-input mixer that is a no-input mixer by a certain company, which each no-input mixer that you sell has the exact same circuitry.
Which is some
That's the big difference also between playing a guitar and playing a
that's-
no-input mixer is that 2 guitars you would be able to play, 2 no-input mixers would take you
True,
2
but
hours to tune it.
That's another issue. I was talking about the issue of that it does something
Some
by
guitars feel
itself.
like that about the guitars.
What?
Some guitars don't like.
Don't sound at all.
No.
Yeah, I mean.
But still, if you have a neck with 6 strings and 2 octaves, you
Yeah.
would be able to play. I can play a bass guitar from learning how to play a guitar because I know the system. I know
Yeah,
how
but-
a string is
Yeah.
divided, and I know how this kind of instrument works.
Yeah, but there's still a very big difference between a guitarist playing a bass or
Definitely.
a bassist that has been playing the bass for years
Yeah,
and
yeah,
has this.
Of course.
I mean,
Of course, but both basses, if you do a Mi, it's gonna sound like a Mi, and 2 mixers, if you tune it at a certain point, they will sound totally different. Nothing to do with each other.
The thing is, as you learn, maybe
Different timbre, different pitches.
yeah.
you play a guitar and you learn its body. You know that it has this,
Yeah.
this speaker and how it will behave. And this way, when you become a virtuoso in no input, you learn the circuitry.
Yeah.
Like how does the
Yeah,
damn
yeah.
chip inside going to
Yeah.
behave?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think. yeah.
But also, I think that a virtuoso in no input could play with any mixer that gets to his hand if you give him 10 minutes to listen to the
I
character.
think a lot of the big difference between a no-input mixer and a guitar is still the thing that Thijs said before, like
Then
if you don't
it's-
touch it,
yeah,
then
yeah,
it
then
will
it's
keep
just
on
gonna
running.
lie there.
And that, for me, that the analogy to an acoustic instrument is kind
Yeah.
of lost.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about ways in which you could make an electronic instrument that
That would-
resemble the virtuosity of
Yeah.
an acoustic instrument.
Yeah, what would that entail? Like, if you wanted that kind of richness in interaction.
Yeah,
and
because I know you've been working on this as well, or thinking about it at least.
yeah.
Because you cannot.
I do kind of think that, I mean, a lot of these instruments that we refer to in that sense, like the things like you have virtuoso guitarists or virtuoso saxophone players, etc. These are all instruments that have had years of development and years of fine-tuning before it came to a form where virtuosity was able to. And also, there have been people that were completely, totally not present at the birth of the instrument, have just gotten this complete and finished instrument and learned to play it like that. Which sort of is a change in focus, because if you're both the developer and the player of an instrument, your attention, I think, is always divided in those two parts. And even if you want to, you cannot separate those two.
No, because you're making it personally for yourself. That's the problem. But are there any examples of electronic instruments which have virtuoso playing them like virtuoso are playing a guitar. For example.
The theremin.
The theremin.
Theremin, yeah, that's a good one.
Expert,
Yeah.
I would also say like more recent monome maybe, where people
The what?
monome, the
Mm.
monome with the buttons. There are people who
Yeah, all these box. How is this instrument called? With the
The pad.
yeah, the trigger.
Trigger finger.
Yeah, but they have a name when they have sounds aligned to them. So you have someone playing a whole orchestra on
like a
drums.
Yeah.
grid thing.
Yeah, I totally forgot the name, but they're really like.
Yeah. They're really.
But
What?
this, of course, this comes from all the thing from all the people playing APCs and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
APCs.
Yeah.
Which also sort of relates to the MIDI keyboard idea of just hitting.
But
notes.
it's funny because it's extremely modular instruments. It's controllers, which all the mapping is basically on you,
Yeah.
which is interesting. But I mean,
All the
it's
mapping
like-
is.
all the mapping is on you. You can decide whatever
Yeah,
you
yeah,
want
sure.
each and every button to do in each layer or with each combination. So you get this controller, you get an interface, you get this
Yeah, but
guitar
then-
without strings, and you can choose out of 100,000 sorts of strings, which each
Yeah.
one will give you different timbre and different
Mhm.
pitches and
But
different
that's
sounds.
basically what mapping is all about.
Yeah.
You get this empty shell.
Yeah, you get an
that's-
empty shell. You get
That's like,
a
okay,
box.
well, here you have a box that gives you X values
Yeah.
for X buttons. I don't know what.
Yeah.
And you figure it out.
Yeah.
Now the problem is
and
that-
then how do you then what would be a virtuoso?
Yeah.
Because I mean,
And
everyone would play it.
everyone would
like,
be able to program it so that they
you
are
don't go to
virtuoso.
an MPC
Well,
class and learn it with a private teacher how to
Yeah,
have a
but-
good technique on the MPC.
But I have a sort of problem with that, is that it's, the system basically give you a fixed tool before you set your problems, and you get that sort of interface, and then you start to create problems in your head that you want to solve with this
Yeah.
this tool, and then you want to get to some place. And musically, I have issues with that because
Yeah, it's a really good point.
if you have like, for instance, if you have 3 buttons, just that's what you have. Then you start to create this instrument that needs 3 buttons to operate, and at some point you just get into this completely ridiculous state where you're just pushing buttons and you don't really know why, but it sounds good because your mapping is really nice.
Yeah.
And it's like, but shouldn't you have like a musical thought that you want to express?
Yeah.
And then come to a point where you think, well, I need 5 buttons to execute this. At which point you probably arrive at the stage where you want to design your own interface and find your
Or
own sensors.
find an interface that would fit exactly for your needs.
Yeah, it's also like one of the things that it's always in the back of my head with using like game controllers, like joysticks and all that HID stuff. Like there are a lot of really cool performances with that, but I'm always like, what came first? Was there the musical idea or the expression that somebody found an instrument for and they used that? Or was there the joystick and were people like,
How
hey,
does it go for you?
what can I...
You do the same.
I think
You have this process.
I have this process. Well, I'm sort of like a conceptualist in that sense.
I think they probably come together. It's like you get a joystick, you think what sounds you can do, you do the sounds, and then you change the sounds. And then you change the controller, and then you change the sounds again until you get to something satisfactory.
What
In
can
a
you
way,
do?
because that's also with computers and controllers and things that you map. There will always be this. I don't know if you call it a problem, but there will always be this issue that it's so immediate. You connect your thing to your computer, you open Max or Live or Super Collider, you press 12 buttons, and you have your whole joystick mapped to whatever you want.
Mhm.
So they somehow there's this curve almost doesn't exist. You have a machine, whatever machine that gets whatever value from point A to point B, You connect it to a computer, you have your interface, and you start mapping.
But so
Yeah.
this is where chaos should come in.
Yeah,
This is where chaos should come in to make it interesting and make it more like
yeah.
behave more
But
like.
I have a massive amount of times where chaos got in it because you have this control that's by chance connected to A2 and it's not even a button and then it starts jumping all over a keyboard. I have this on my sound card, which is really nice. I have this button, it's this DJ sound card where you have two things that you can do scratches, and it's really not consistent. It jumps. It's like it's MIDI, so it's 128 values, and it jumps from 3 to 16 to 59 and back down. And if you give it a turn, then it will do like those crazy, just go from point to point, and it gives it to a certain note, and then.
But that's like the point where there's two reactions to that. One being
What the fuck? And one being yay!
and the other one is being open to the surprise.
I tend to go with the yay. I performed with this thing so many times. Ah, cool.
I'm sorry, I really need to go. I have to change the application for tomorrow.
More application run.
Okay. Go back to your typewriter interface.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's plenty of buttons there.
But yeah, and then with computers, there's, I always have this issue with having a controller and having a computer, and it's so easy to turn your computer into an actual instrument that's controlled with hands and not with keyboard and mouse.
Yeah, but even like
And then you fall a lot of times to very simple places which are not interesting enough to play with.
thanks.
I mean, I don't think of what I'm going to map my controller to when I open a live set. I start doing my music and then I get my controller, you know, very fast. I just map it so that I have some knobs and some buttons.
Okay, so we're gonna go. Can we? And I will see you next time on the next.
Yes,
thing.
thanks for the
Yeah.
presentation for
No,
the workshop.
Thanks, yeah, it was really
We're
nice.
gonna do it again and more detail.
Yeah, cool.
Right.
Thanks.
Would we write
Yeah.
it for the paper?
Yes.
They're on
Right.
Hey.
Okay.
Nice and fine.
Bye-bye.
I'm sort of interested because you don't really use much light electronics yourself, I think. Would you see sort of like connection to structured improvisation? Like you have a bunch of people playing instruments, and then you have sort of some tool that you use to make them create something.
No, the way I design performances is similar to the way you guys design instruments. It's like I fine-tune the parameters of a performance the same way you fine-tune the values, the variables of a patch. So in my case, the environment and the media that you showed on your first slide, Melanie, are sort of one. They are not a feedback loop, but they're already in the same sort of circle. I think that's how I can describe it.
Cool.
Yeah. Also, in that slide, I was sort of, because you had the environment of the performer there in the audience and then humidity and that kind of stuff. You had the media, the audio and video, that stuff. And I thought like, but where's the actual control, where's the instrument? Is it in the media or is it in the environment? And it was sort of, it was flipping back and forth.
No, the instrument would be in the audience performer controller.
That more the mapping
media
is the
is
instrument.
the outcome.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's really.
But that's, yeah.
I mean,
I think I like electronics a lot of times. The
it's
mapping
really
is
hard.
actually the instrument.
It's really hard to define like what is an instrument, or what is a musical instrument.
Yeah, especially I have a big
I tried to
issue
find. I did
with
this
electronic
workshop
controllers.
called From Interface to Instrument,
Vibration.
Wait a minute.
and I did
let's
find
give it
some
a-
definitions there, which I will.
There are definitions of a musical instrument.
Well, there is a definition on
Wikipedia.
Why is
Wikipedia.
it so hard? Like, if I would knock on this table, the table would be the instrument, right? It'd be pretty
Yeah.
simple.
For me,
It would be
if it makes a vibration at a pitch, then it's an instrument.
So every speaker is an instrument.
Yeah, and then you have
It
the
doesn't
issue
necessarily
of
have to be a pitch.
speakers.
But if I would tell them to tap the table, would I be playing with PBS?
If you're the conductor, and I'd be the.
Alright.
Yeah, the conductor and the performer and the instrument.
And this will still be the instrument, that wouldn't change it.
Well, actually, when I prepared this workshop, I found two definitions, like for an interface. Okay, so there it says like in the field of computer science, an interface is a tool and concept that refers to a point of interaction between components and is applicable at the level of both hardware and software. It allows a component, whether a piece of hardware such as a graphic cards or a piece of software such as an internet browser, to function independently while using interfaces to communicate with other components via an input-output system and an associated protocol.
This is
Via
this is definition of
that's like very like
interface.
computer science definition of interface.
Yeah.
In addition to hardware and software interfaces, computing interface may refer to the means of communication between the computer and the users by means of peripheral devices such as a monitor or a keyboard, an interface with the internet via internet protocol, and any other point of communication involving a computer. So that's quite abstract.
So a mouse is an instrument.
Then for a musical instrument,
It's an
I
instrument.
found the definition
Could be an
like it's a device created or
Musical
adapted
interface.
for the purpose of making musical sounds. In principle, any object that produces sound can serve as a musical instrument. It is through purpose that the object becomes a musical instrument.
But the remote doesn't produce sound, it only provides input.
Yeah, so then you have
Yeah, so
this
that
division between an interface
Yeah.
and an instrument, which is extremely confusing.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's why the
But
Wiimote is
I mean-
not an instrument. The Wiimote, in
It's
combination
an
with code,
interface.
is an instrument.
Yeah.
So it's the combination of the beat
Yeah,
and
but
the
then
remote, or
but
the
then it
computer
controls.
versus
It's like I always have this thing in my head which disconnects this disconnection between the interface and the fact that it produces sound out of data is always confusing for me. Because an instrument for me is something that produces a vibration
Yeah.
and it makes a sound that goes to my ear.
Yeah,
And an interface is something that sends a value to a computer which produces whatever sound I want in the world.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
the
the-
characteristics of an interface and an instrument are extremely different conceptually and with the sound and the whole
it's
function.
like a combination, like Stijn said, like a combination of like an interface and a specific piece of code,
Yeah.
like a mapping to a
Yeah.
yeah.
specific way of mapping it to sound.
Yeah.
That is an instrument.
It becomes an
Yeah,
electronic
but
instrument.
what's your as a live electronics person, my actual instrument that I use is a speaker. Cone.
Yeah,
That is the object that's actually making.
that's your resonating box. That's where it comes
The
out.
resonating box is the plastic around it. The movement that the speaker
Yeah.
cone makes,
Yeah, yeah.
that is my instrument.
Yeah.
And
In a sense,
and
that's
all the
also-
other stuff around it is basically
In a sense,
is my
that's-
physics
That's also like an interface again from like the
Yeah.
electrical domain.
It's an extension to your computer that gets the
No,
sound out.
but that's the thing that's resonating. That's like the resonator I use. And everything before that is like the physics. It's like if you take the metaphor
Oh,
of,
I think
of the
it's
guitar,
just
it's like the
different.
sort of wood you use, the sort of strings you use, how
Yeah,
tight
I can understand the
how tight you
metaphor, the
do that.
terminology is not right in my opinion. Sorry.
No,
I'm
I
saying
don't know,
it
like,
that way.
if I have, for instance, that no input mixer that I have,
Yeah,
all the little things with the knobs that I do
yeah.
are like the interactions that I have with my fingers to the strings, but it's not the sound hole.
Yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying. Even with the no input mixer, the no input mixer basically is an instrument that doesn't have an output unless you connect it to a speaker.
That's why the speaker is.
It's a bit like an electric guitar. You won't hear it from far if it's not connected to a speaker. Still, it does vibration. The no input mixer still does a vibrate like electricity inside, even when it's not connected. I look at it as an electric guitar that's not plugged in.
Yeah, but the computer also does that.
The computer
does electronic shit
Yes.
inside.
Yeah.
You program it to do
Yeah,
it.
but I mean but it's just terminology that I don't quite that I can't put.
I mean, all that code that
Exactly.
you type
Mhm.
in Max or in
Yeah.
or whatever, all that mapping stuff that you do is actually doing stuff electronically,
Yeah, of course.
sending these
of course.
messages, and that's. You can totally take that analogy and place it on top of an input mixer,
Yeah.
or place
Yeah,
it on
yeah.
top of an electric
Yeah.
guitar or a
Yeah.
guitar or anything.
Yeah, but
It's
it's
just-
like it doesn't have a resonating box unless you connect a speaker. And then
And
this is a peripheral. This is something
Yeah.
outside.
There tends to be a speaker in it.
Hmm?
There tends to be a speaker in it.
In our laptops, there then so that is
There's something that's sort of like sort of like a speaker.
No, I like this discussion between when it comes out of an actual vibration or when it comes out of values that are turned into sound into our.
But I kind of like to take like vibrations as the interface. Like for instance, using piezo.
Yeah. But that's also, I always do that. I always feel the need to have vibration. If it's only electronic, I get confused a little bit.
Yeah, but one of the things I sort of miss in a lot of live electronics is a sort of physicality
Yeah.
thing. So when you really want to play sax and really want to make it scream, you have to put physical.
Blow very hard.
You have to put physical energy in there before it gets to that space, and that's something I really miss in a lot of live electronics.
Yeah.
Not all.
Somehow
but a lot.
with the no input mixer, somehow it works. You also do that.
Yeah, but that's also the reason why I'm using pressure sensors
Yeah.
as my. And right now my mapping is still like completely off, but I want to get to a point where I actually have to put considerable physical energy into that system before it starts to behave
Yeah.
in the way I want. And I want to bring that physicality back into music.
Yeah.
I think it shouldn't be about considerable energy to have it to behave the way you want. I mean, having it to behave the way you want is describing like one event. While you're talking about you want a certain range, so you're saying like you want a certain bandwidth.
Yeah.
That's what you want, basically. You want to be able to have different reactions for different touches, and you want a lot of that.
Yeah. Well, what I basically
I think
want
it has a
is-
lot to do with sweat. You want to sweat when you play an instrument. That's like a big thing. It's like, I want to sweat when I get off
Yeah,
stage.
that's true.
I don't want to sit and press buttons when I get off stage exactly in the same state I was when I went on stage. I want to sweat.
Yeah.
Like, I really want to feel the water on my face.
But what I want is that the sound my system produces reflects the state that I'm in while I'm
Yeah.
producing the sounds.
Yeah.
I want there
If you
to
press
be-
harder, it will
It's
be
very
harder.
nicely put.
I want there to be a connection between me and my instrument, which is basically embodiment.
Yeah.
And I think good mapping should have that aspect inside of it, that the gestures that you do and the effort that you put into something is reflected musically.
And one of the things
Yeah.
that makes this really hard is that often while you're doing mapping, you're sitting behind your computer at ease,
Yeah.
absolutely not sweating.
Yeah.
So maybe you should do your mapping while sweating.
Yeah.
Maybe we should make a system where it's really easy to map while you're actually active. So
No, but then
or have a
there's
dynamic.
there's the aspect of map, get away, play, and then go back to map.
And that's exactly what I'm doing right now at my residency. Is
Spend less time on mapping than on playing.
I'm 90% playing,
Yeah.
and then I adjust some stuff, and it's being a chaotic system. Even the most minute changes I make in my mapping have these giant implications
Yeah.
on playing. So I have to play again
Yeah.
a lot of times and see what impact it actually has.
And probably every change that you do in the patch, in the mapping, would change a whole bunch of stuff because it's a chaotic system.
Yeah, and that's why I'm really glad I still have like 6 months ahead of me to actually finalize this thing. Because it's a really laborious process.
It's a lot of playing. It's a lot. It's exactly this learning curve to become a virtuoso and then kind of adjust what you need
So
with
what,
it.
what kind of map do you have in your head? How do you manage that in a way? Because it's so experimental. It's really based on what you encounter.
Yeah,
Because
You
you say you have
can't
one
recognize and know what
So
makes your band sound.
when do you feel like
Very
I've reached
specific
this certain
sound.
state or knowing what phase you're in?
I think it's really, really personal as well.
Yeah, I think I'm really sort of
What's your end goal?
confronted like with my own taste in what I actually want to hear from out of those speakers, and it either matches or doesn't match. And then if it matches, I'm really happy, and if it doesn't match,
I'm even
then
more
there-
happy.
There, yeah.
So
Also,
the-
then there's like two approaches. Like I'm either playing it in the wrong way, or my system isn't working the way I want.
So is the end goal that it matches your expectations? But in a way you're trying to push you out of your comfort zone, so
Yeah,
you don't
that's-
really know what your expectation is. Your
Yeah.
expectation is that it will...
I want to have a
My expectations are that it would be beyond my expectations.
Yeah, it's like, and then it's I expected this, fuck this.
I expected this to be unexpected.
I don't think it's expectations. I just try to optimize the range of sounds I get out of the system to match my taste. I want that sort of ratio to be really nicely in balance. So that a lot of stuff I do, I like, and the really small amount of stuff that I do produces something that I don't like. Stuff that I don't like is, for instance, predictability. So I want a system.
When I do something and I expect something to happen, if it happens, I'm not happy.
Fucking
But
disappointed.
Yeah, but in a sense it's true, because I'm-
that's a really predictable pattern in a way.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
If you do that,
I've been doing music for 10 years and it's been like this
Like
since the beginning.
yeah, it's like, remember you're doing this, and then you switch it.
Yeah.
After a while that becomes boring, because it becomes just
Yeah.
as predictable. And you feel
Yeah,
better.
but then you get this whole another level of.
Yeah,
Unpredictability.
so when are you satisfied?
But
It's kind
I
of
think
like-
for your research, it would be really interesting for you to write about a way that is not only applicable to you, but sort of more of an overview on how you make the choices.
What I think I really try to focus on is
So
the expression,
I think you should take a bath with your mixer.
right?
I think we also have to think about the unpredictability of our transport home.
Because, yeah, stands alarm starting at 12 or something like that.
Oh, it's already 12:15. Yes.
But yeah, test tonight, go home, take your mixer, take a bath with it when it's connected, and do the speakers.
Take a bath with this mixture you want to kill?
I don't want to kill it. I want something unexpected to happen to the speakers.
Well, I kind of expect what's going to happen if I do that.
Yeah, but let's not touch tomorrow, it's fine.
You can sit down to put his mixer in his bed.
Okay.
Yeah, or maybe
to
just-
sum this up, this was really interesting. Thijs, I wish you the best of luck with your research.
Thanks for all your input. Sorry for taking away all the sort of topic.
No, we were
Mapping.
still
It was
talking
relevant.
about-
So no one was on the chat.
It was
I wanted
wonderful.
to clap for like 2 comments. Screw you guys.
Bastards!
Goodbye.
Screw you guys, everyone's home.